Twitless, what are we talking about today?
We were talking about the new Fantastic Four trailer that just dropped today from the MCU and a companion comic, the Fantastic Four Life Story, issue number one, covering the 60s era. Both of these, the film and the comic, kind of cover the origin story of the Fantastic Four. The comic, the life story, is kind of trying to cover basically different decades. So this would be the 60s decade, essentially, following them through time, like I said, their origin stories and some of their first exploits and challenges, all while dealing with the specter of looming over the Earth of Galactus, the coming of Galactus, which we actually do see teased in that trailer.
Yeah, I found it pretty fun to see. I mean, my burgeoning understanding of mainstream comics is that I mean, we really get a second golden age with the Fantastic Four when it's invented in the 60s, right? So it's fun to see the cinematic universe kind of get reset, so to speak, with this new Phase 4 by going back to Fantastic Four. At first, I was a little confused, and then I kind of thought through it. I was like, you know, we, we we're still kind of newish to cinematic universes getting reset every few years. Like it was only comic book movies that kind of acclimated us to that because of how comic books are. And so it's interesting to think like why reset with Fantastic Four again? And I think there's good precedent for it. I think the the story universe is it's a good sounding board to to set the tone with again. I think, and it's I think the trailer is hitting a lot of right notes. I saw a lot of people even say things like it feels like Jack Kirby. I have no idea how the this trailer feels like Jack Kirby. Maybe you guys saw something I didn't, but when people say stuff like that, it is clearly resonating with them. It feels like it's true to form. So I think those are all really good, strong signs.
Let's take a brief pause to hear from the awesome creators joining us today and find out what cool projects they're currently working on.
Hey guys, if you love sword and sandal historical fiction with a healthy dose of ancient Roman and Egyptian fantasy mixed in, then check out Kyrie. We've got 450 pages printed so far, a fourth book on the way. Order your books today at curiecomic.com.
Modern day, classic superhero storytelling. Get the Adventures of Omega Girl, issues 1 through 5, now on Indie Planet.
Thank you to our awesome creators, and now back to the video.
Maybe it feels a bit like they hit the reset button too hard. And there's like an
Ooh.
extreme campiness here of like, this is just so retro. It's retro barf just all over.
Uh-oh.
It's so kitsch, you know. So I guess there's a lot of aesthetics that they're introducing there. There's the friendly robot that it almost feels like the Jetsons, you know,
Yeah.
is cooking with Ben Grimm. Ben Grimm doesn't have his traditionally represented grizzly, gravelly voice. He just sounds kind of, you know, high pitched and a little nasally.
Voice was a huge
Average.
voice was a huge problem for me, and it felt a
Mm,
little James Gunny there for a bit, where
Mm.
yeah.
things should not be acting like a theater kid. You shouldn't sound like a millennial or anything like that. I'm not saying that like just his cadences just seemed very contemporary,
Was he too
whereas
friendly? Was he a little too like, "I don't wanna hurt the robot's feelings about its cooking"?
so the original comic, he was always a bit of a hothead, and
Yeah.
he was very blue collar. The idea of Ben Grimm, the thing is the way he's typically portrayed is he's a bit like Jack Kirby himself in real life. Jack Kirby was very blue collar, worked his way up from nothing, all on the streets. And so, you know, it's clobbering time. That's a lot of Ben Grimm. The thing is in some ways channeling some of that spirit of the scrappiness of Kirby himself. And so some of the look for the thing is, you know, I think maybe evocative and I think some of the maybe because it looks so retro, that may be why some people are thinking Jack Kirby, because again they're thinking back to the silver, that second golden age, the silver age, the
Mhm.
Marvel the Marvel subset of the Silver Age that was kicked off with Fantastic Four specifically. That's what started the whole Marvel dream, essentially, was that
Mm.
particular book. And it really just kicked off something that was, I mean, Marvel was kind of dying out from superhero comics. They were kind of like, they were about to shutter the doors on that whole side of things. And then they whipped up Fantastic Four and started an entire movement. And so there's something about that that is kind of inspiring to see, just an attempt at a return to that, and the fact that it's evoking some of those Silver Age roots. I think is, to be honest, I think some of it's just some boomer bait. It's a nostalgic thing
Interesting.
that's going to resonate with people who remember those times, just like millennials, I think, resonated with Stranger Things so strongly because it was just a return to home. But the voice, it was my first thing that occurred to me. Something felt off the minute that the thing spoke, and the way he just sounded like an upbeat contemporary person, and he didn't have this kind of blue collar, a little bit. Ben Grimm's always a little out. He's a little old fashioned, a little out of touch. He comes across like an old stone that hasn't moved, and you can hear it in his voice. And is it Michael Chiklis who played him in
Yep.
the 2000s era film? Actually, did a pretty good job of sounding like he was a man made out of rock. Setting aside the goofy, suit he was in. Like I said, just something felt off about that in particular, and the other casting as well. Like I said, I say what you will about that 2000s era series, but Ewan Griffith or whatever, he looked exactly what my mind tells me Reed Richards looks like, and Jessica Alba was really hot as Sue Storm, and and
You
Chris
don't like this new girl? You don't like
she just looked
Mission
to
Impossible
me. There,
girl?
there was nothing that super stood out to me. Chris Evans as Johnny Storm was like just pegged to the role. The casting for those films, for the actual Fantastic Four, was actually really well done. It channeled from the Ultimate line of the comics. This new trailer, honestly, I was a little underwhelmed. The casting was not hitting it for me.
I think a lot of films, though, are trying to eschew traditional expectations, such as the characterization for Ben Grimm, for a more familiar tone. The one thing that stood out to me about the trailer is it felt homey, it felt comfortable, it felt, like they knew each other, it was intimate, they were bonded. And I think that's really what they wanted to put at the forefront with this representation, is
Mhm.
they wanted the aesthetic of family dynamic to be really, really strong in the presentation of the film. So I enjoyed a lot of the aspects. I didn't actually have a problem with the Ben Grimm voice either. So maybe that's a hot take. I thought, it fits in this scenario where they all are intimate and you know comfortable with each other, and we don't need an aggressive, grisly kind of figure there, a brute, when you're in the home setting. You need somebody who's a bit more warm and approachable, like this Ben Grimm is. And I think that's also the reason why they went with a bit of the Alex Ross visualization of the character, where he doesn't look so aggressive and intimidating.
Hmm.
He's a bit dopey looking, even in some of the scenes that I saw him portrayed. So it's um, it's going very much for those tones, and then having the overarching looming threat of Galactus there does kind of wrap it up nicely. There's all of the significant elements of Fantastic Four represented here.
I don't know though. Even showing Galactus, it just seemed very incidental. There's just a giant head on a screen. It
Yeah,
just
compared to
from
this comic, right? Where
Yeah.
it's so cosmic.
Yeah, Galactus is supposed to be cosmic, and I will say one thing.
Yeah.
I've only seen clips of the Eternals, but one thing that they captured well with the Eternals was how they captured the Celestials. There's shots of the Celestials where they appear bigger than the Earth because of how cosmic they are, and that they can kind of change their size to be like almost infinitely large and kind of like almost like hold the Earth in the palm of their hand. To give for our audience on a power scale, Galactus is worth at least I think three or more Celestials. Like when they've actually fought, Galactus can like take on, because the Celestials are kind of like space gods in the Marvel universe. They're like technological cosmic space gods, and Galactus is like a step. He's like a tier above that. So like they should be going back to what they did with the Eternals film to channel Galactus. And so like I said, I don't know, it felt a little James Gunny to me, and just that trend of kind of like, trying to have these misfit characters have like really quippy dialogue and stuff, and then like here's Galactus just kind of appearing in a shot, even if though it's from behind. I don't know. I'm on the fence on this one. I think the trailer does it's effective at doing what it needs to do, which is get people psyched up about this retro story. I think setting it in the 60s is an interesting choice, although I have no idea how they're going to connect it to the, maybe not no idea, but it'll be weird how they try to connect it to the MCU moving forward.
So, who did it better? The new and improved MCU or this comic book? Which one gave the better reimagining of the Fantastic Four, the first Marvel family?
Oh gosh, you're gonna make me defend the trailer I was just picking apart. Um, so no, it was definitely. I'll keep it short. It was definitely the trailer. I hate this comic.
Oh no. I thought Ben Grimm was gravelier in this comic.
Yeah.
I think the art was a little just so. I didn't feel like it had. I think it was just really strong jobber material. To be honest, it didn't feel like it had a vision. Even if I don't know, like I was watching the trailer just thinking Days of Future Past, which was like a very nice, distinct one-off with a distinct vision, and then we just kind of left it and moved on. And it feels a little funny to do the 60s again in Marvel world. So, but at least it had a vision. This one, like stylistically, I think I just feel like we were just kind of presented with this with a story as is. It didn't feel like it had a ton of complexity, though. I did appreciate I think the Galactus content was the strongest in this comic.
Yeah, and Grimm was tortured, which is probably what people were expecting a little
Yeah,
bit
that too.
more of. And yeah, the Galactus was cosmic.
Mhm.
And all of the tension, all of the urgency was set in the proper time frame. They're in the 60s, and there's the space race going on, and they've had several experiments trying to get out to space. They also have the family setting very strongly reinforced in this comic. So even though both are trying to go for the family motif in terms of the theme that they want to put forward, the comic is still able to retain most of the traditional archetypes that we know from the
Yeah.
Fantastic
I,
Four and
I, I
still
had
accomplish that.
I have to interject. This comic is trash.
That
It's one of the worst. And I read
How
and I
is it
read
not hitting all the
and I
notes?
Elaborate, Twitless. Give us some
I
real
read
opinion.
ahead. This series only gets worse as it goes. It actually becomes
Oh.
utter swill as
Why
it
is it
goes.
trash?
The 60s weren't that far away ago. You could
Mhm.
literally pick up Fantastic Four issue 1 and just do a reprint of it,
Mm.
and just get everything that you get here, but get it better. This is literally everything. It's just trying to do. It's walking in the same steps, but doing everything in an inferior way and changing things they have no business, right, or reason to change. So, for example, they do this whole bit where it's like, oh, we need a pilot. And then Johnny's the one who just like grabs Ben Grimm and then throws him on the shuttle for like no reason, and then just shrugs his shoulders at it. There's no point to that. Like it's been long
Mm.
established lore that Ben and Reed Richards have been essentially like at the hip for a very long time. And I think there's even some hints that they may have even been like, like almost like war buddies, like from World War II or something like that. Like there is like long established things. They change it for no reason. They make a whole bunch of other changes. They try to update it for like modern audiences while doing a retro story.
Mm.
Marvel has had a long history of in the 60s of deftly handling its own political era. The civil rights era happened during the Marvel era, and they handled it in the very issues, and not they
Mm.
didn't always handle it well, but they were handling it at the time and like working through it. So you have
That's
Iron Man
cool.
working through the Vietnam War, you have like other issues happening, and this comic just kind of like is just it's just terrible. It's it's rewalking in the same steps that Jack. And why would you pick a Stan Lee and Jack Kirby comic to retcon? Why would you go to like the most like some of the most foundational moment of
Mm.
Marvel. It's like redoing Snow White and expecting that to go well, and it basically goes just about as well. So I'm very passionate about some of these lore things here. They have a strong resonance in my heart, especially regarding Doctor Doom, who they then pillage in future issue in later
I
issues.
think we're gonna have to do issue 2. I think we're
No,
gonna
you can't make me. You cannot make me. I
That's in the
refuse.
70s, so
great. It's
I would
I
rather
waited
read
more.
I would rather read Nemesis than read Fantastic Four Lore of the Day. That is saying something.
It
saying
doesn't
a
bode
lot.
well for what you might think of the reimagining that the MCU is going to do for the Fantastic Four film if you hate the 60s being reinterpreted so drastically. So
I'm
it'll be
worried.
interesting.
I'm
It'll
worried.
be it'll be interesting when we do that review and compare it to the first issue of Fantastic Four. So look forward to that. Matt C, Twitless. Let's start with you, Matt. Final impressions on the trailer.
Yeah, it certainly tried to tell me something. It doesn't just feel like another, Marvel movie from the last couple years that just had an indeterminate kind of direction and just kind of assumed that was coming along for the ride. It's really trying to bring me along. It's emphasizing family for some reason. It's emphasizing, I don't know, it feels more wholesome, I suppose. I think that's probably the point of that. It's it does seem to have a clear intentionality and direction, which perks my ears up. It feels like there's actually going to be, this isn't just cape slop shoveled at us. That's actually they're actually really trying to do something, and they're not just trying to revive to keep a franchise afloat. They actually have a vision here. It's going to be interesting to see if they can pull it off. But a lot of people whose opinions I respect are interested in what this film's going to be bringing. So I'm here for it.
Twitless.
I am concerned this did not hit me the same way that the Superman trailer hit. I think
Mm.
I have worries about both. I feel I don't know, just it did not activate the neurons that other people got activated for. Honestly, there are parts of the 2000s era Fantastic Four that I think people just that go unappreciated. They really captured in your mind what these characters look like. This trailer, I'm not so sure, and then other things aren't resonating so well. Maybe the film delivers on it though. The retro thing is a decent take. I do like that. That's a new thing to do, and it worked really well for Captain America, the first Avenger. So, yeah, we'll see.
Thank you very much for checking out the video. Subscribe, like, and stay tuned for more.